Welcome to Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding live stream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, but you may know me as @Shashaw.
And I'm your host, Chris Coyier. Sorry, wrong line. I'm your host, David Khourshid, also known as @DavidKPiano.
And today we are joined by a new coding compadre, animation amigo, and Boolean buddy, the one, the only Chris Coyier.
Hey, thanks for having me, gang. Big fan of the show. Love it.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you with us. This is great.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, Chris started two of the most useful web developer resources, which is CSSTricks.com, which is an amazing resource for like all sorts of web articles, not just with CSS. So it should be like CSS, JS, React, Vue, whatever, tricks.com. But also CodePen.io, which I love. That's pretty much how I got my roots in web development. And it's the platform that we always use for collaborative coding and sharing demos with you. So he also hosts the Shop Talk podcast with Dave Rupert, and he speaks at conferences around the world. In fact, I think the first time I saw Chris was at a WordCamp or WordPress conference or something like that, many years ago.
Right on. Fun. So, let's bring some imaginative user interfaces to life. That's like a high-quality slogan. You love it.
If you want to learn more about Chris, you can check out chriscoyier.net. We'll have the link available. And thank you so much for joining us. You've been one of our longest supporters on Patreon and just of the show in general. That's been a huge help to us. We definitely appreciate that.
This might be my first appearance on Twitch.tv ever.
Twitch.tv debut.
Isn't that Twitch.tv? Twitch, isn't
really?
That what
Yeah, Twitch.tv.
So this is exclusive. This is a real deal right here. It's like a rare collectible card, except it's a collectible Chris.
Collectible Chris.
I love that it exists, though. It's not my first time watching Twitch for sure. It's not like I spend all day on there, but I like the idea of watching video games and watching live coding.
Yeah. There's a surprising market for live coding.
It's especially because it takes all the magic away, and you get to see the behind the scenes of like, wow, there's these really good coders who struggle just like everyone else. And Shaw and I definitely make a point to struggle on every episode.
Yes, that's scripted. That's heavily scripted to seem natural.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did screencasts forever on CSS Strict. Less so now, but I still do some of them. There's a couple hundred screencasts on there, and I used to get emails back when I did them more regularly because I do warts and all too. I just hit record the thing, hit stop, send it up. I didn't do it on Twitch and still don't do it on Twitch. Maybe I should, but I get emails saying that they like the warts and all. So warts and all.
Yeah, it's important.
Right. Well, it really shows the thought process, I think, is the most important aspect of it, is just seeing how you get to the final working solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So speaking of the thought process, we're actually going to do something fun today. We're going to be doing what we always do, and that's creating an animation from scratch live using HTML, CSS, and maybe no JavaScript. We'll see. We'll see what Chris decides to do. But we're going to be doing this with Chris. So it's going to be our first three-person collab mode. And for those who don't know, collab mode is a pro feature on CodePen where you could hold, I think, up to 10 people. Maybe more? I don't know.
I actually don't even know. And as a matter of fact, it's the chances of us actually having coded a hard stop in there are probably somewhat low.
Yes.
Great.
But yeah, it's worked well for us so far, and we've definitely enjoyed it. So yeah, we'll be coding this animation. I've got it pulled up. Navbar experiment by Wow. Don't know how to pronounce that name, but thank you very much.
Try it. Come on. What part about that?
Bjorgvin, like Bjorn, the band, but Bjorgvin, yes. Peter Sigurjonsson, which it's like Sigur Rós, if you know that band. I don't know, there's like so many good bands built into his name. I'm saying he has a really awesome name. It's definitely Icelandic.
So. And from Reykjavik, Iceland.
Yeah.
Wonderful place. I'd move there in a heartbeat if they'd have me.
Yeah, and they actually have a very active web development community, surprisingly, for being such a, I don't want to say remote location, it's a tourist hotspot, but I always enjoy going there when I do.
Well, it's an island in the middle of nowhere. I'd call it fairly remote.
Yeah, true.
Cool. So it's a beautiful thing. Are people looking at it right now on the Twitch stream?
Yeah, well, we've got that link shared in the chat, so you can all see that animation and hold us accountable for recreating that as we go along. But yeah, there's a lot of cool little elements to it, but basically it seems simple on the surface, but this is actually something that's kind of hard to do with just CSS. So we're gonna try and do that, just CSS.
Right. So a little bit of background on the actual design. It was made using a program called Principle, and Principle makes these types of animation really easy because you could just say, here's where one state is, here's where the other state is, figure out all the transition magic for me. I don't want to deal with that. And it just does it for you. So
yeah.
That's cool. I haven't actually tried it, but it looks nice, especially if it's this kind of thing. You know, get the magic for free. Yes, please.
Exactly. It's always nice.
Yeah. So yeah,
looks like there's some complication in here in a way because there's sliding and there's active states, but it's not just like active or not active because it affects the things around it in different ways. And the first one has slightly different behavior than the rest of them in a way.
Yeah, and the background is actually separate. That's its own little deal. So yeah, let's get into it. Chris, do you mind turning your mic up a little bit if you can gain yourself up?
Yeah, I can gain. Is that better? Check. It looks like it's peaking a little bit.
There we go.
Still quiet.
That should be good. I'll turn you up a little bit more too.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So here we are. We got our collab mode going. I'm just closing the JS panel because we shouldn't need that. So let's see. We've got just the tiniest bit of setup in here, most of our typical stuff. Chris has added a little note for us. Don't judge him.
No, that was me.
Oh.
I'm telling Chris not to judge me.
Okay. This is okay. Gotcha. So
By
yeah.
the way, fun fact: if you want to know why I do position relative on everything, it's because of an article that Chris wrote many years ago, and I'm like, that's such a cool idea, and it's stuck with me ever since. But I realized that nobody ever does it except for me. So
full circle here. Wow.
Yeah.
So we have Chris to blame for all of this.
I think I kind of like it in this limited context, you know. Or from a greenfield perspective, it might be kind of cool.
It could be nice as like a CSS modules style, like contained CSS. You can just go ahead and set every child of it position relative. That might be a good approach in a larger project. Yeah. So
that's good.
Yeah. So doing this CSS only, my thought was radio buttons might be the right approach to kind of track that state.
I mean, are we debating it? This is the first decision we're going to make: radio buttons or the alternative JavaScript, essentially.
Right.
It would be radio buttons because there's only can be one thing selected at once, right? So there's that.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like, I don't know. I mean, there's something appealing about the radio buttons and having checked or whatever. Is it checked even with a radio button? It is.
Yeah.
It's not like active.
It's not radioed. Yeah.
It's toggled. Radio it in.
But like, I don't know. I've seen so many demos like that. I've played with it. I love it. I'm always attracted to that concept. And then if I were actually building something production, there's no way. Yeah. So like, I don't know. And then is checked like, is that going to make sense to our viewers in a way? I'm sure the audience of Keyframers is very clever and they won't have any trouble understanding. But I'm picturing complex CSS code, and then instead of having like .active or some kind of naming that we've invented to indicate the active class, you have to like mentally translate that to :checked. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. And of course, you could abstract that with Sass and placeholders or mixins or something. But still, yeah, I agree. It's a little weird, but it's a fun challenge to have a.
That's where you want to go. I'm cool with it. But how would you write it in JavaScript? It'd be like a 2-liner, wouldn't it? Be like on click, turn off all the active states and turn on the active state of the one that you clicked on. You know.
Actually, yeah, that would be what we would do, and so we would. We've sort of moved away from using class names for that, actually.
Oh yeah,
that's sort of like the classic way to do it. And we've shown in many episodes how easy it is to just use dataset. So dataset dot, active.
Yeah. In fact, I saw that on the Keyframers recently, and it made me write it down because I didn't really. Because in JavaScript, don't you have there's class list. Add, remove, but there's also just data set, right, or something like that.
I think it's all lowercase.
Yeah,
data set. But it doesn't have toggle. It doesn't have a couple of conveniences that class list does, but it has more than It has more than using get attribute and set attribute, which is a little more cumbersome, right?
Yeah, and also on the flip side of that, class list and manipulating classes becomes a bit cumbersome to clean up. It's sort of like getting a cat versus getting a dog. Like if you get a dog, you have to take it out. You have to, take care of it. You have to be home with it. If you get a cat, you just leave it alone for a couple of days. It does its own thing,
Microphone, better time.
Hey, there we are. There's Mr. Chris Radio Coyier.
What an upgrade.
Hey, thank you so much. We've had two Twitch subscribers so far this stream. Marius and
wonderful.
El Suxo.
Marius,
thank you guys.
Dabrowski, and El Suxo.
Yes.
However you pronounce that. It was a lot of fun with Marius the other week. By the way, we did a code and keys, or keys and code episode where he just made a ton of recommendations for me to play on the piano while Shaw was coding up this awesome visualizer, and I was playing most of them. So.
All right, so link.add event listener, click.
Yeah.
Then we'll do
a guy like that.
Then we'll do document query select.
Styling while you're all doing that.
Data.
So you got to reselect them all. Oh, I see. Find all the active ones.
We could actually just go through the links and remove them all.
It's like trivially different, I think.
Each, and then we'll just say l.dataset.active is false. So
that's nice.
That'll remove it all, and then link dataset
that should be fine.
Equals true.
Is that? But you click on one of them. Is that going to work? Don't you have to get it out of the event? Probably
no, because we're doing a for each. So this event listener is being registered for each individual link. So this L link will be the specific element. So
that's fancy.
Let's test it real quick just to make sure. So we'll say down here, what are we targeting? The LIs. So LI data active, color red for fun. So if we click.
How do you all feel about the I elements for icon?
It's not my favorite.
Yeah,
it's shorter. It's like, it's meaningful though,
I just want to save bytes. I care about the environment. I care about,
Oh, let's just disagree about it for fun.
Fine. So what's a semantic way to represent an icon?
Oh, that's a good question. So there's no doubt about it. Like these little vector things are SVGs just because they'll be so scalable and so crisp and so small in size and stuff. I mean, I would just grab their SVG contents and plop them right into the HTML, which would be, then you don't need to worry about the semantics. They're semantically SVGs, which is an image format, which is fine, right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's my my
or
take
pseudo elements. That's the route for me.
Right, because then you don't have to worry about the semantics either, because they're just
Right.
Yeah. So, for
So that makes
example,
sense.
for the first one, let me see. Let me copy this real quick. So for home, I've copied in just a simple little home icon from the material design icons.com.
Oh yeah, that
website.
looks, it's not dead on, but it looks good.
Yeah, so for some reason our JavaScript does not seem to be running. I'm not getting any kind of
I'll look into it.
feedback.
Look,
Yeah.
What is happening?
Chris will be right back. He'll go to the servers and
Kick them.
yeah, kick him a bit until they start working.
I'm telling you, hold on.
Shouldn't.
Oh, I can't just test it locally, right? Because we're in collab mode, so every single character I type is
Right. It just it
seen
doesn't
by the
seem like
world.
anything is running. Let me just do a console log.
Nav
Hi, up
ULLI
here.
and you click on the LI, which ultimately they should probably be like anchor tags, right?
Yeah. Okay. So error missing. All right. So we're missing something here. What are we missing?
Oh, it's just a syntax thing. That's funny
Right.
that it's not making something
I see what
red
it
or
is. Yeah. There we go. All right. That should fix it. All right. Yep. All right.
Cool.
What did you do, David? Oh, all the spans are display none. Okay.
Yep. And so
Alright.
display block. So the first thing we think about when we do these animations is we don't even think about animating. We think about what's their before state and what's their after state. And then the transition comes after that.
yeah.
And that just makes it a lot easier to think about the animations.
Yeah.
So in this case, we want to show, I guess, only icons. And then once those icons are clicked or tapped or pressed.
Well, that's funny because it doesn't, like in the GIF, there is no moment in which none of them are selected. There, at some point, all of them are selected. And I guess that's a question, right? Because in that state of none of them selected, that actually adds some complexity, I think. But maybe not. I don't know. I'm trying to.
Well, so
Right.
what we do is in the JavaScript we can just add links 0 dataset.active.
Yeah, we'll just force one to be active because
Yeah, maybe for now that'd be cool. It might be, if we have time at the end, it might be interesting to see.
oh yeah.
What is this delete on line 13?
Okay, so yeah, let me explain that real quick. So setting an attribute, a data attribute to false, still gives that data attribute on the element.
You
but
just want it gone?
right, if you delete it from the data set, it will remove that attribute. That way we can target just data active instead of data active equals true.
Equals true. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. That's cool. That's definitely something I just learned.
So yeah, let me add in a few other icons here. Y'all continue with
Okay, so
stuff.
I mean, it feels like this always needs a little stop and think. You're like, okay, what is actually happening with these active states? Because even without transitions, I almost think the transitions are almost an afterthought in a way. Like even just getting them to behave to go where they're supposed to go is weird. So it's like if one of them is active, it's wider, and it looks like it's not variable length based on the length of the text, which it could be if we got fancy, but in the GIF anyway, they're all like 100 pixels wide or something. Like that's actually kind of convenient. That means we can probably do some math that's not like measure the length of the text in JavaScript and then use that in the trend. That's going to be harder. So
You're giving me
Anyway.
Canvas nightmares.
yeah. I mean, I've seen it done, it's like kind of flip like, right? Like do it off canvas and then measure it. And then, but anyway,
Right.
maybe let's not do that at first. So when it's active, it has a width that's wider. And I don't know if would keyframers use width here, or would you stay away from it because the animation of width sucks.
We probably want to stay away from it now. Because this isn't a complex layout. Animating width is actually not going to be too bad, but it will run at 60 frames per second. But here's something that
seriously, oh, that's good to know.
Well, with a small enough app, because it's like you're not asking it to do too much relayout. But here's the thing: even if you're animating width or height and it's running at 60 frames per second, it's still going to be a little bit, I don't want to say janky because it's technically not janky, but crusty. And so here's what I mean by the adjective crusty. When you do, when you're not using transform, when you're not promoting that to its own compositor layer, whatever it's called, like its transform layer on the GPU, you aren't doing those GPU optimized sub-pixel things. Like things are going literally by the pixel or maybe the half pixel, but it still feels crusty instead of just like a nice super smooth colorated.
Isn't there some like muscle memory to it too? If you just put in your head, hey, animating width sucks, never do it. Like maybe that's not as as nuanced of a cool explanation as David had, but it'll probably lead you to the right place. Like, I don't know, just don't do it. It's smoother not to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the way I would approach it is a fixed width on the LIs for the inactive and the active state, so that no matter what the text is in there, it's going to be the same width, and then we're toggling from the icon only fixed width to the full fixed width, but we do those kind of movements and things with transforms.
Right. And even though you're instantly moving from one fixed width to another fixed width, because everything else has a transition on it, it'll still feel smooth, I guess.
Right.
Maybe, hopefully.
That's the intention. So width.
I see. So
yeah, data active. Why is that? Why is that
is way too small.
SVG scaling? SVG width 1M.
Okay.
Height 1M. Let's get okay. And then
so Brum GB asks, what's the opposite of crusty? And the answer is buttery. No, because you could have a crusty buttery like a croissant,
That's true. It does beg for a bread analogy, though.
Yeah. Okay, so avoid janky animations, avoid crusty animations.
Flex shrink 0.
You getting whack with Flexbox in here for these things? Yeah, I suppose, because you need a line item center, because this is why I always rag on vertical align, because vertical align will just not help you here.
Yeah,
there is no value of vertical align that will align that word home with that little house. Not happening. You need Flexbox and align.
Yeah. Vertical align gets so screwy when you're dealing with.
It's like almost like the default should be vertical align position relative top 1 pixel. That's what you're going to end up doing anyway. Anyway, Flexbox is the way to go here, so that's cool. Yeah. And where are you gonna put these fixed widths? Oh, I see. We're doing it with CSS custom properties. That's cool.
Right. And so the reason that I'm doing that too is because I'm just thinking ahead. We have that yellow outline on each of the icons, and so we do need to do some math to figure out where that goes. And since we're, we don't want to go the JavaScript heavy approach to do all that, like all the calculate. Whoa, what happened there?
No,
I just got a flash of like JavaScript.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. You did not see a CodePen glitch there. Definitely not.
It was definitely a me glitch.
But anyway, we want to do the mathematical measurements of like where that yellow thing is going to align so we could smoothly transition it.
Right.
And so we can't have magic numbers. And so CSS variables or CSS custom properties are our way of defeating these magic numbers. So we want to avoid, changing the value until it works. We want to actually,
Right. So are you wanting to do those values dynamically in the JavaScript on change?
Which
to
value?
Keep the active item basically?
Yeah. So we could have like same techniques we used before. So like we could have index whatever index is active. So 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah,
I see.
3.
Yeah, I'm starting that down here in the JavaScript. So I've selected lnav
Alrighty.
on the top line, and then the number of links that we have is just going to be llinks.length.
Are you trying to get like 1, 0, 1, 2, or 3 based on the one that's clicked out, and then you're going to take that index and multiply it by this property to, because so by magic numbers you're saying you click on the little bell. You don't want to have some CSS that's like, okay, translate it 27 M's to the left, because that's a magic number.
Right.
And magic numbers, as fun as they sound, are bad.
No, they're bad. Yeah.
So
I was thinking what I thought you were going to do is say just like, if you click on like, I don't know, nth child 3, then it translates left of item width times 3 or whatever.
That's basically what we'll be doing, but with CSS custom properties or CSS
or CSS variables.
Yeah. Whatever. So active will be I down here, and so we'll do that down here as well. So active to 0. And this should probably be a function that we can just call, but for now that's fine. So yeah.
So you're setting an inline style essentially on it, which it's kind of like that makes its way over to the HTML, which makes its way over to the CSS in a weird way.
Right. And so, David, what's your idea with the before? Because I was going to do a completely separate element.
No need. Could have it be before. You'll see.
The way you're going to slide it.
We're going to slide it. This will just naturally transition.
We may run into trouble with the changing width, but I'm interested to see. Oh, okay.
Well, because
I see. You're doing it on the unordered list. I thought you were doing it as a part of the LI, but okay.
No.
That's good.
I see. Yeah, it probably makes sense as a sliding thing. At least conceptually, that if you look at the GIF, it's kind of like that yellow thing is its own little beast. Mm-hmm. And it, as of before, that means it's totally out of the DOM. Or I mean, I don't know if that's true anymore. It feels like that used to be true, and maybe less true now. I feel like it. I don't know. I definitely lived through the years where number one, a pseudo element, you couldn't animate them for a long time. That was weird. And then now you can. It used to be like, well, if you put content in there, like a word, that it won't be read, and that's like totally turned on its head. Like it's in the DOM, and it's even read by assistive technology. The fact that this has nothing in it means it won't be, so that's good. Anyway.
Yeah.
I've run into issues even in the latest versions of Chrome where performance for animating pseudo elements is just bonkers.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, so I tend to default to just using an element in the DOM. It helps a lot. So if we notice, a performance issue for something this small, it shouldn't be an issue. But
if you wanted to get your hands on it for whatever reason in JavaScript, you can't anyway. So start with the pseudo element, and then if it's a problem, just make it a span or whatever. An empty span is there's no problem with that. I also had my comeuppance in an era where that was kind of crapped on, having extra crap in the HTML in those days.
Whoa. Yeah, honestly,
pragmatically, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of just being afraid of adding extra elements because I'm like, it's going to cost too much to download, or I crazy like
it's like weird thing that gets in your head forever. See, look at you have a weird one. You do your pseudo elements with 1 colon, which is like the old school way how it used to be, and it's like it's necessary for supporting some ancient version of IE or whatever. It will never not work, so it's not like you're ever wrong, but it's like it will never be necessary again. So but it's still in your head. That's still how you do it.
Yeah. I default that way too. Yeah. All right, so before we get too far, so David set up this pseudo element. It's got the width of our active item width and the height matching all that with our yellow background.
That's unfortunate.
So position absolute, and so one issue here is the transform translate X active size. Times 100%.
Yeah.
So this is the active index. So whichever item is selected times 100%. Right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
You got it fixed there.
I still don't know if the math's correct there, but
Yeah. So this should be a little bit closer. We'll have to play with the numbers
because we didn't put an icon with. Oh wait, we did. We just have
multiplying by the icon width. That doesn't quite. compute.
So right. So what we'll do down here we've got our icon width. Do we have a margin in between them?
Nope.
At all? Okay, they're just. All right, so that's fine.
Because that would have to be added to the math if you did, I suppose.
That should be good. Okay. Yeah, so that's basically what we want. We've got the background lining up with each of them.
Yeah.
That seems to be working properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Looks all right to me.
All right.
And then a little transition, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Seems fine.
So the math works out there.
So active is the index, and what is icon width? Literally the width of the icon. I get item width.
Yeah. So like when each item is collapsed, that's what I'm using that width for.
Right. That's basically the
I see.
collapsed width.
Yeah.
Hey, and so David's added a little bit of transition in there, so that's great. What I was going to do with the li is overflow hidden, and then instead of span display none, let's see.
I was so picturing the use of sibling selectors in this solution, and it's just not happening.
Right. With these, we shouldn't need to do that.
Maybe.
And then with auto transform translate X. So I'm trying to get the label to slide in. I'm not sure if this will work at all. Transform. Transition. Transform. 0.5 seconds.
So the translate X 100% is going to kick it off to the left as wide as it is.
Right. So
which is a little arbitrary, right? But you're just hoping it looks good. And then margin left. And so when it's active, you're going to say translate it back to 0%. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of working.
Yeah.
Obviously the timing of it all is off. I need to copy that transition.
Let's see. Is that what the GIF does? It kind of comes in from the left. Yeah.
Yeah. So the icon itself should be sliding. That's part of the.
Yeah, it's like almost like the text doesn't move in the GIF. It may be an optical illusion, but it looks like it's just been there the whole time, and it's just
right. It's
you
more.
Might have to animate it to do that because of.
Oh yeah. The way. So, what I think we need to do is animate the item, the li, to slide over, and then the text itself, we just kind of do the opposite animation, so it's like it's revealing. So like the text doesn't seem like it's moving, but
well, that's kind of an animation trick here, isn't it?
Right.
Like,
is there a way to do that without animation, or like just with transition, or do we have to use animation?
I was thinking I don't know, like the fact that the width isn't animated, right? You're not moving the li just instantaneously changes and everything else animates. Like can the text benefit from that same?
So transform translate X var item width times minus var icon width might do it. That's got to be wrapped in a calc, of course. Let's see. All right, so yeah, you can see that there. That's obviously off for the moment, but if we did that with an animation, that would work rather than transition. So let's see. Actually, we might be able to do it here. Do that, and then, oh, sorry, David, covered up.
Getting crazy.
Get back in there. Let me see if this will work. Do that.
Lots of math going on here.
It's not that much math. It's definitely not the worst math we've ever done.
Oh, we've done some crazy math where we were like, I don't know how this works, but it works, so don't touch it. That was fun. Fun times.
0. All right, so that should work for the active one, but the problem is the other ones are off. So do you think we have to do an animation for this? Bless you.
Thank you. Was I muted?
You were, but I just happened to look.
Like, wow, I was hoping that no one heard me, but great.
I'm sure your neighbors did.
Marius asked in the chat if there's other approaches, just because it is interesting how different people would code this in different ways, which is definitely true. Before CSS variables, there would be completely different techniques to code this, which might involve a lot heavier use of JavaScript and or jQuery to boot. Honestly, if we were to reapproach this from a JavaScript approach, we would probably just stick flipping in there and use the flip technique and just do all that. But for now, this looks pretty good, except we have the case where we're going back like from a later selected item to one of the previous selected items where the animation is just not exactly right.
Right. So
it's sliding for no reason. And so that's something that flipping would solve, but we could also possibly use sibling selectors to just tell it what to do when we're selecting a previous item. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So I've got...
That's probably how if you want to look at like ancient implementations of the same kind of thing, it used to be called, I don't think it's quite perfect, but there used to be a term called lava lamp navigation that this is evocative of, which was kind of like, I don't know, popular in the jQuery heydays of animation, I'd say.
I've not run across that. What's the gist of it?
It's kind of like if you had like, it's like just the background part of this demo. So if that yellow blob, if it was just a fixed row of things and that you'd click a nav item and that yellow bar would just slide over to the next one and possibly expand to the size of the text that it's around, unlike this demo where it's fixed, you know? So that I think that morphing of the blob size is what made it lava lamp, you know? This is a little trickier because of the sliding...
Yeah, and
the sliding text.
Probably could toy around with that too. See, I know we did a bunch of things with flipping before. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, that just blows my mind, that flip stuff. I'm attracted to the frameworks that are like, we just flip for you. It's conceptually, I get it. It's like, start with the finished transform, you know, then do all the transform to put it back in what, you know, visually looks like the starting position, and then undo all that. And the idea is that because you've moved it all with highly performant stuff like transforms and scales and thing, that it will automatically run really fast the other way around. It's just like, well, okay, great, but that sounds like a pain in the butt. Yeah.
Did I get it or...
It's close. It's like, it's almost, what's happening exactly? It's like, I don't know what to say close. It almost looks like the text like comes in from the left a little bit. You know?
Right. Yeah, that's...
But you just need a little magic number in there, Shaw. It's fine.
Right, I know that. just gotta find that magic number.
You'll find your magic number. I believe in you.
So what are you doing here? Are you doing the fight the animation the opposite direction technique?
Right. So it is with animation. So I've got animation item slide down here on li data active. So it's basically just translate x the icon width. I'm not quite sure why that's working so well. That's what's bothering me. But yeah, it seems to be working for some reason.
But it's like, what are you? Is the goal still to make the text look like it's not moving at all?
In certain scenarios, yes. In certain cases,
yeah. I might have a solution for that.
I mean, it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, for the sake of mimicking the GIF perfectly, it's cool. It'd be kind of cool to see if we could do it.
Yeah, Steve G in the chat, hey Steve, says, my approach would maybe position all the icons and text in their active states, then move the icon 100% right if it's after the active. So text only animates opacity and icon only animates icon if active.
yeah.
Right, so since we do have... since we could add the indexes to everything, we could just have everything position absoluted and do it that way.
Ooh, that sounds terrible. But no offense. It's just you want to have as much natural layout as possible, like just whether it's flexbox, grid, or something. If you do everything absolute positioning, you might as well just do it on canvas or something.
Yeah. Item width, is that even working?
It's the active state.
Yeah, for some reason, icon width, that's what I'm mistyping my values here. Whoa. Okay, I messed something up.
I put the opacity in. That slipped my mind there. I didn't screw you up, did I?
No. You're fine. Let me go ahead and bump up the font size.
You got the text not moving.
Yeah,
there you go.
Something like that.
Yeah, almost. Now that you've bumped it up, now it feels a little movie again. Oh, feed?
Yeah,
well, maybe not, man. It's just an optical illusion. So
can I experiment with something?
No.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't do any experimentation in this thing. So
never.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually disable all this animation on the what am I disabling animation on? Yeah, like the slide and whatever. So all of that stuff. So basically I just want it to be just static, pretty much the way it is, if that makes sense. So there's one other animation that I think I forgot. Like the text animation, what's going on there? Where's that coming from? Or is that a transition?
That's a transition.
Aha. Okay, let's kill it.
Yes, I got that up here.
Okay, yeah, I guess commenting out is the better way to do this. I'm just putting X's in front of the animation, and that's one of those things where it's like, why doesn't my CSS work? And you start to wonder.
This is Sass too, which might not love that.
Yeah, so all right, let me try one thing real quick, because now we're talking about like let's see if the flip technique can help. And so let's see, when we click wrap, okay, let's see what happens. No?
Not really anything, but background's moving smoothly.
Oh, wait, maybe if I get rid of that. Aha! Look at the icons for the first three at least.
Yeah, when you're going left to right, it works okay.
Well, right to left too, just because the icons aren't really supposed to move.
Yeah.
Oh, we just had to adjust the Z index on that. And we'll be good.
Looks that way.
Well, what do you think, huh?
They are supposed to move though, don't the icons kind of slide?
Yeah, that's what's happening, but it's
yeah, they slide back for sure, and I think that is what they're doing. They're just hidden behind the
the yellow bar is so big. Maybe just shrink it up and you'll
like I promise you they're moving.
So yeah, let me just add a Z index to the LIs.
There's just more space horizontally between stuff, and I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird. Why are they appearing behind that pseudo element? X1.
They should be like siblings, right? Because they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because they're both absolutely positioned, but one of them's the yellow bar is before. So it should, the icon should be after it, which should naturally z-index it above.
So I've hidden it, and there is something weird happening. Is there a background color on the? No.
Maybe. Oh. Yeah. So the data active should be less or lower z-index, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I see what you mean, though. It's like there's a white background that's hiding the...
Oh, so they are overflow hidden. So that's probably what's happening. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Is that what's happening?
Yep, it was just an overflow hidden deal.
Okay.
So, there we go.
All right, well...
All right, that's...
There we go.
Yep.
So from left to right, they look... From right to left, they look cool. It depends on which one you're talking about, you know?
Yeah,
for some reason, it's different depending on the direction you go and how cool it looks.
Yeah.
So in theory, since we're using flipping, we can even drop the specific width, right?
We can. We definitely can.
Well, I guess I'll comment it out for now.
So we got Flip for free because you made some cool library or something and it does it automatically.
Yeah, it's just a tiny. So it's just a small abstraction over what we've been talking about in previous episodes too, where we would dynamically calculate the position and the like the width and the height of each of the elements before the transition and then after the transition, and then we figure out like what needs to happen for it to get to that position. And then once we do that, then we could just use the Web Animations API to smoothly animate that. And so this works for all browsers that support the Web Animations API, and for browsers that don't, then they don't need to see the animation anyway.
Right, it'll just be an instant state change, which is
okay. So you're using some data flip attributes that activate that library, but you're saying you need to also write a little JavaScript to
a little bit. So all I did over here was add a flipping.wrap, and this is going to do a couple of things. First, it's going to read the positions of all of our data flip key elements and just store that in memory somewhere. And then it's going to execute whatever is in this function. And then afterwards, it's going to read the positions of those same elements and then figure out the delta. So what changed transforming on the x-axis, transforming on the y-axis, maybe if it grew or it shrank. And then it's going to use the Web Animations API to animate those smoothly to those positions.
So currently one of the issues is the background. If we're not doing a fixed width, the background needs to be done in a slightly different way.
Yeah,
how would you approach that?
What we do is use, it was your idea, but the separate elements for the background.
Yeah, make it a span. See, it happens to you enough times, and you just start using a span from the beginning.
Right. Yeah. So we'll just have a span data flip key background in each LI.
Mm-hmm.
And then would you also add a class to that, or would you just target the data flip key?
You could do, I would add a class, because let's say someone goes in and says, wow, this flipping library is garbage and wants to rip all of it out, then, they could remove that key safely.
Does that happen often?
All the time. You don't even know.
It's funny looking at the state that it's in now, like clearly it's doing a lot of calculation and movement of things, even in its weird state that it's in. And it's like, it's kind of cool to see, but also like, does that mean it's also going to, like, the little house icon, it never moves ever. It just stays right where it is, Does that mean that the JavaScript, even when we get this done and right, that it will still be like kind of flip calculating stuff, but it just doesn't matter because it's not going to be moving?
Which part are you referring to again? Sorry.
I just mean like every time you click everything gets flipped, right? I don't know, something changes and it calculates like everything.
It tries delegating all that to the flipping library, you're saying, I don't know what changed, just figure out what changed for me. So it does do however many flip elements you have, it does do all those calculations. But the performance impact is going to be the same whether you do that manually or not. Let's move that there.
All right.
And so as you could see, the nav bar actually changing width, it smoothly animates too, and we're not.
Yeah, right.
That's our little secret. We're animating some element that just changes its scale.
So if you want, like right now, the white bar like instantly changes the width, and it changes the width because you're display blocking a div or a span or whatever that's has different lengths depending on how long of text it is. So if you put data flip key on the like nav or something, it would animate its width instead of
it would not animate the width, it would animate the scale. And you also don't want to do that because you have this weird sort of phenomenon where, or not phenomenon, but just like a natural occurrence where the children inside of that nav are going to be stretched and squished, and it's going to look weird for a split second, and people are going to be like, that looks a little funny.
So when you flip stuff, only flip it at like one level, don't flip a parent and child.
Right. Or what you could do is what we did over here and introduce that separate background element. And so we flipped that instead. So yeah, like you're saying, just flip at the leaf nodes, basically. And so what the way that this is tackled, like in the ecosystem right now, like in React or anywhere else, is by doing it very JavaScript heavy, like calculating it on every request animation frame and doing what's called an inverse transform to the children. Now that's expensive. Even if you're only doing transform, you're still running on the main thread. You're doing a lot of calculations on every single request animation frame. And it's all because, I guess, developers want to avoid adding in extra elements, but we just add an extra element because we're lazy. So.
All right.
So what's up with the alignment here? The background.
I know it looks cool though. It looks like those trendy off-print magazines or something like that.
It's a feature, right?
Yeah, ship it.
You just mean how the icon hangs off of the pill?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's because we don't have any padding or any.
Well, I do have some padding on the elements here.
Or like on the actual what's it called?
On the background itself.
Oh.
Span.
So trying to. I wish CodePen had its own built-in inspector that doesn't change every time shot.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, right. It's hard to use the web inspector when somebody else is typing.
Switching over to the auto run instead of.
So the background
right.
The background span has a margin of sorts, and we need to get rid of that.
I see. So it's like you can't trust that yellow pill to like be reflective of the LI because it's.
So you're targeting span instead of like another class. So I'm gonna add a class here to clean up things a little bit. Title.
I just did something funky.
Oh, you're doing label. So label.
Yeah, we can do label. Let's make this span class equals label. Why not just make that a label?
Well, definitely don't make it a label.
A label element is not appropriate here.
All right, fine. But a label class is. Got it.
So.
I mean,
span not
because
background.
It imparts some roles that would be weird outside of a form.
That's true.
Okay, so let's see. Not span. Let's do label. Okay, and. So we need to set the background to be opacity 0 here and opacity 1 here. Otherwise, that should work correctly. Or does it actually need to be display none and display block so that flipping detects it properly?
Yeah, display none, display block.
Okay. So our background here will be display none instead. And we'll go back.
At least in Flipping V1. I'm slowly working on a Flipping V2, which just uses CSS variables and doesn't try to do anything for you. It just gives you these variables that you could do whatever you want with. And the result's actually a much lighter library.
So at some point, they're going to make the width of the everything.
That's working much better.
Yeah.
You're going to force a width again on these things? Or do we kind of like how it...
I think we can get by without that.
Yeah.
We can set a fixed width on like the actual navbar if we wanted. And then just center everything within that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm just looking at the GIF again, and it's like nothing moves. Like especially the width of the white background just stays.
Oh, so that's because in principle they were sort of doing our first technique where they just had a fixed width on everything, which looks a little awkward in the original animation actually. But I could understand that that's because of some of the limitations with principle, and so we're just doing it the dynamic route. But if
what still needs to move? Like I see the icons move now, but the yellow background doesn't. Kind of slides. Sometimes slides.
No, it slides all the time. Oh wait, you're talking about in the original?
No, I mean I'm just following along with here in collab. Like
gotcha.
Display none and display block, I think, is what we need to go back to.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, now it's sliding. There was something changed.
Yeah, so I went from display. Well, let's see. We were hiding it with opacity. I went back to display none and display block because that's more how flipping handles it.
Mm-hmm.
That feels a little bit more legit. I mean, not you can do whatever you want here, but now everything moves really smoothly. It's even Flip is doing so. It looks like it while it's transitioning, it grows by 1 pixel in height, which is a little curious.
Does it really?
It does on my machine, maybe.
That's funny.
I don't know why exactly, but something has decided it needs to be 1 pixel taller. And it gives it a little bulge effect, but I would call it crunchy,
Hey, crunchy's nice.
Cool.
So if you're going to fix the white bar, could you just then what would you do to do?
So all we would have to do is like give it a fixed width, right? So like
they're already spaced with Flexbox, so it should
Right.
space them evenly anyway.
Yes, it should.
all right, let's see position. All right, now let's give it like 70 W.
And then
We could just
justify content.
Just
Ugh, gross.
or space between maybe.
so we could have that whole thing going on.
What do you get if you go? Nothing.
Because this isn't 100% because David was...
There you go.
What'd I do?
So you did the display flex here, which I don't think we actually need. That can be taken off.
Which one? Oh, on the nav.
On the nav itself.
Mm.
This looks good.
Yeah.
I think it's got that. I think it looks kind of cooler with the fixed sizing of it. It just has like some sturdiness or something that
It's less wobbly, less jello-y.
Yeah, right.
A lot of moving parts going on.
I like that in a chair too, like I see a lazy boy and they all wibble wobble all over the place. It's not like I don't like to recline, but I like a chair that just has some integrity,
Yep.
So let's see. Width 100% is okay, but what isn't there fancy width values that would I don't know, max content? Is that one of them?
Well, that won't really help here because the
not really.
max content is changing since we're toggling display none and display block.
So auto's not that interesting too. Where's the 75? That's funky. So you'd probably just pick a pixel width that works for the content inside of it. I mean, that's a terrible magic number, but if you were trying to mimic just a good feel that fits the content, you could just put in a pixel value, right? 500 pixels or something.
You'd probably want to do it by ems,
Sure.
50 em.
Why is the white box? Oh, there's that. It's that min width on the nav itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be the same too. Let's see.
So let's see. It's more like 50 em.
Yeah, I see what you mean now about the pixel bulging effects, but yeah, I'm trying to add change transform and seeing if I could force something there, but nope, it's just a feature. It's like a rendering engine quirk type of thing.
Yeah, so the space between is kind of weird because when you click like home to feed, you get a little bit different of a, like the bell icon is sliding a little.
Mm-hmm.
That is funny. So what did we have it before? Just
center.
Center or something?
Yeah, which isn't specifically ideal, but feels a little bit.
Does gap work yet can you go? That doesn't work yet in Chrome, does it? Are we all in Chrome?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm in Chrome.
Does not work yet. It's supposed to work.
Right. What you would just do there is just add margin on the LIs.
On 3 of them, right? Or I guess you could do on both sides of all of them, but then you get the like double margin in the middle of. I don't know. There's like no great way to replicate gap, I feel like.
Yeah.
At least with the simple math. That looks good though.
Yeah, it's getting there. Feels nice.
Is this like the polish stage?
Pretty much, yeah. And we don't have to stick with it too much longer.
I think it looks awesome.
Yeah.
What else would people do here? I suppose, can you flip color? Is that a thing?
It can definitely transition.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't even need flip, right? Because you just set a different color and
yeah, it depend on how exactly you're changing it, but +1 starting to look great. Thanks.
Oh, that's right, because it's not really a background, right? It's like it's this freaking element thing.
Right. So yeah, with flipping, I don't know if it would handle the background change by default. Like if feed was a different color than home or whatever.
No, it's not a child either, so you can't even use the data active equals true, or maybe you could because this is the opportunity for the child selector, right? So if it was li like li,
well, so it is a child of each of the ones. We're just using that data flip key to make sure that it's moving.
But so, like the span thing is not a child, right? It's like
the background, yeah. The pill background.
Yeah,
is a span within the list item.
Well, they all have one. Why?
Right. In order to do that alignment. So basically, flipping whenever it's data active, that background becomes display block, and flipping detects the data flip key background was here, but now it's over here. And then so it handles that transition with the web animation API.
Yeah.
Does that make sense at all?
Kinda.
There's 2 different ways that, an element could, I guess, teleport or transform. Number 1 is if it physically moves location, where it's like the same element is here and now it's over there. The other way is if an element disappears and its twin reappears somewhere else, like sort of a magic trick. And so flipping handles both of those cases. And so the second one is called a shared elements transformation, taken from Android, because Google was the first to sort of, have this idea of let's just give 2 completely different elements that look exactly the same but are completely different. Let's give them the exact same key so that we could track them and make the user using the app pretend that it's the same elements and give that illusion. So 2 different types of animations there.
Right. So right now, if you toggle between home and feed, you can kind of see how the background's changing there.
Yeah.
So when it's that yellow color, that's just the default. That's the background under home. And then when it's red, that's the background element under feed. And so you can see as soon as
it would be difficult to get them to transition color because they're different. They're just different elements.
Right. Yeah.
So that would suck if the client was like, "Oh, can you make it fade from one color to the other?" I'd be like, "Sure, let me architect the whole thing." You know,
it wouldn't be too bad. You could do that within the JavaScript here, like setting a value in there that it's transitioning from. But yeah, it does up the complexity.
Because like line 33 of the HTML, I was like, "Oh, that element they moved it outside the."
Right, so that's the white background to transition that width if it needs to transition.
If it needs to, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa. Did you take that off?
I just deleted it.
Oh, I see. The trick there was to don't do it on the parent. Do it on it was in a sense making it a leaf node when it wasn't originally.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's one of our little tricks up our sleeves.
Yeah. No, that's
background
good.
elements.
Yeah, and all you did there was like absolutely position it right where it should have been anyway.
Exactly. I used my old technique. Shaw has a different technique for getting in absolutely positioned elements to cover the entire parent.
I would have just top 0, left 0, with 100%, height 100%.
Yeah, see, that's what I do, and he does some CSS grid craziness, but it's actually pretty cool.
I dub it grid layering. I still need to write up something on that or do a video on that.
Does it force it into? Do you need a height 100% still, or does
no? So the benefit of doing this over position absolute is the parent element will actually retain the largest size of the layers within it. So you don't have to size the parent like a specific aspect ratio or a specific something. So if you had a image gallery where you had like some landscape and some portrait photos in it, if you layer them using display grid and basically just one column and one row, and then everything within that is on that same column and row, the parent will expand to the tallest and to the widest. So yeah, it's just kind of a nice way.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. It reminds me of the, like if you're doing an aspect ratio, the padding trick is nice and all. And so, one way to do that is just to like set padding top to, 56.25% or whatever it is, but force the height equals 0. So then it pushes down to an aspect ratio. And you're like, cool, but in a sense, you're like kind of forcing the height of it, because then okay, great, you have an aspect ratio, but in order to actually put any content inside there, you can't unless you put another element inside it and use this trick, this top left 100% thing. And now as soon as you set a height equals 100%, you've locked yourself into that height. Like you were trying to go for an aspect ratio, so maybe that's what you want. But I always like tricks that are a little bit more flexible than that, So like the evolution of that trick was to put a pseudo element in there that uses the padding height trick. So then when you put content in there later, if it happens to expand lower, you're not like triggering a scroll bar or anything. It just will continue to grow. I think that's the spirit of your trick too, right?
Right. Just with actual elements that have like intrinsic ratios in them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always enjoyed that pseudo element trick. The padding.
Every time you set a height, you're like, I wish I didn't need to do that.
Right.
It just gets so messy after.
But I noticed we used a height here on this.
Did we? I think we've negated the need for it.
There's just a variable set.
Yeah, there's just a little bit of cleanup that needs to happen. We'll do that.
That happens
in
off camera, I guess.
Right, we do that in post
right now.
Yeah. So we're reaching the end here, and we'll do a little Keyflections, and then Chris, if you don't mind, we'll just talk for a little bit, ask you a few questions, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
So yeah, let's Keyflect first, so we can go over what we did today. So we're now moving into Keyflections, a quick review of the techniques used to build this animation. If you have any questions about this or have any questions for Chris, go ahead and ask in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer.
Yeah. Also, if you've enjoyed watching us so far, including Chris, you can follow and subscribe here on Twitch or YouTube, or pledge at patreon.com/keyframers. Links
Yeah,
are
do it,
available.
people. Jeez.
Yeah.
Follow Chris's example. He's a great leader in that aspect.
Yeah.
I bought my way onto this show.
Patreon
Yes.
pays the bills. Shaw gets paid through Patreon exclusively. Chris does not pay him at all.
One day. So today's animation that we've been coding here with the wonderful Chris Coyier has been Navbar Experiment by this guy. David can pronounce his name for you later. So it's got this nice sliding effect as you're clicking through the navigation. Everything's just kind of moving around and moving back and forth. So for our actual HTML setup, we've got a nav element with an unordered list inside here, and then list items for each of these little navs. The icons are just SVG copied from materialdesignicons.com, and then we have a label and a background within each of those. And let's see. Yeah, so basically whenever a link is clicked, we're triggering a flipping call. David, do you want to go into that real quick?
Yeah, sure. So like we talked about in previous episodes, the flip technique, we basically are keeping track of elements, getting their measurements, their top, left, width, height, everything, before a transition happens, doing the transition where the elements can show up anywhere, like we don't know which position it's going to end up in, and then measuring them again after the transition happened. Then once we have those two different values, we calculate the delta between them, see how far to the left or right it moved and how far up and down it moved. We could take those values, stick them in the Web Animations API, and make it smoothly transition from its original points to its resting point. And that's the flip technique in a nutshell. And so in order to accomplish that, we added the data flip key to each of the elements that we wanted to smoothly transition. And then we just ran flipping, which sort of abstracts that whole measure the first position, measure the last position, invert it, and then play it. And yeah, so we're just doing that flipping transition anytime we click one of these links. And yeah.
Well, it's cool that we added that about, I don't know, halfway through or 2/3 of the way through, something like that. And it,
yeah,
some of the pain, but we didn't start there. So if you're just listening to this wrap up, it was kind of interesting to see us, I don't know, ultimately decide on that as a possibility. You know, there's probably about 10 ways you could code this thing. And
It was almost
just one of the
CSS only towards the beginning there. We were just kind of using JavaScript to handle the actual like click event kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the issue with CSS only, like right now with the state CSS is in, like the math and everything just gets so messy when you're trying to like do all these kind of movements and get things in an exact position without animating width to try and be performant. Mm-hmm. So right now there's not that much about our CSS that's overly complex. It's basically just toggling between display none and display block whenever something is data
I guess
active.
that's it really feels like, now that I've digested a little bit, flip seems kind of perfect for this, doesn't it? Like, all you do in CSS is just hide and show a couple of things. So all the CSS here is just like the basic styling of it, hide and show a couple of things. I mean, it's, you know, it turns out it's like 100 some lines of code, but like it probably doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it could be trimmed down for sure.
Yeah. And then in the JavaScript is still pretty simple because it just uses this library, and you just say, oh, here's the things that I want you to animate to their new positions when they are. It's just really like a poster child for flipping, really.
Mm-hmm. And by having it be a data key approach, which is something we talk about in almost every episode, we could progressively enhance, and we could use those data keys, or we could decide not to use it. So if we wanted to not use flipping at all, like I could just, actually I'm going to do a danger zone type of thing here. I removed flipping, and guess what? It works just fine. It doesn't animate, but it's still completely functional. And so we no longer have those crazy, like, it's effortless to just remove the JavaScript and have it, work the same.
Yeah. And that's the kind of state you want to be in, where you're not locked into a really specific technique. You're not locked into a specific library. You can kind of try other things out easily and see if there's a better approach to it. Makes things a little more modular. So, yeah. Anyway, that's most of what we did. Go back and watch the full thing if you want to know more. But yeah, we had a few user questions and a few quick questions we had for you as well, Chris, if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just putting in the chat room, if I happen to miss one and you really want to ask me something, just there's my email address. Feel free to go for it. But I'll answer what I can right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, from Flip in the chat, Chris, how did you get started in the web dev world?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while now, but it was just like being in college for art and finding the web world like pretty appealing and cool because of the, just of the reach that you can get from building a website. It's kind of a powerful feeling to just be able to just buy a URL and point it to some hosting and throw up some bits and bytes up there and have anybody in the world be able to see it. Is pretty cool and powerful feeling. And I like that. And I still kind of have that feeling and enjoy that. It's like the art. It's like art with the widest possible reach you can imagine, which is kind of...
What kind of art degree?
Ceramics was my art degree, believe it or not. But I was a computer nerd even then, like I was a computer nerd first and then wanted to do something a little more hands-on and ended up getting a ceramics degree. But there is no such thing as a ceramics degree, at least I'm not aware of. You get a Bachelor of Art, and a Bachelor of Art is just all kinds of art stuff, but you end up kind of focusing on one art thing. And I focused, I took a bunch of classes like graphic design and stuff, but mostly a bunch of ceramics classes. So I end up,
Do you still do that? Do you still do ceramics?
No, I don't really, because I had so many friends in it who were so serious about it. They're like really good and making their lives out of it. And I was like, you know what? I'll never quite be like, it's not like they turned me off from it. I still could be doing it, but I was like, this is your thing, kind of like I can see how much of your life it needs to take up to give it justice. And I kind of felt like I'm going to choose something that I can do it justice. And I'm a lifelong computer nerd, and that's just the direction I wanted to go because I felt I could give more of my life to it and still kind of support and enjoy and love that world too. Maybe someday I'll get back to it, but man, it is an investment, You can't buy a wheel for your house and throw pots. You kind of can, but that's like such a small chunk of the overall process, You need like a drying situation, and you need like a way to capture all the clay that you end up not using and recycle it back into usable clay, and then a kiln to bone dry the thing, and then a whole glazing setup if that's the route you're going to go, and then a final firing process. And it's like, my God, you could spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. And
do they have like maker labs for ceramics?
Yeah, and they're just studios. You can buy. It's just like a co-working space for nerds, but it's the co-working space for ceramics people too. And that's cool, but things are they're timed so specifically. If you're gonna make a coffee cup, you gotta get your wet clay ready to go, go through that process and throw the thing, and then store it somewhere that you can't just leave it out on the counter. You got to store it in a way where it's going to dry really slowly to the point where eventually you can flip it over, literally, not like the flip technique. Really turn it over with your hand and then trim it and do the whole bottom of it. But it's got to be a certain dryness to get to that point, which means you got to come back the next day or come back 18 hours later, and if it's across town, you're like, whoa, Christ. And then after you've done that, you got to dry it to another level. You're probably going to attach a handle to it. Well, that's a whole other procedure that starts with wet clay and adhering wet clay to less wet clay. And And then being really careful about how you let that dry, and then letting it get really dry, and then moving it to a kiln to fire, and hopefully it lives through that, and then a process after that. It's like when you make something, it ends up being this multi-weeks and month process that it's just a lot easier if you're like living it. If it's down the street because your dorm room is half a mile away,
You know
or
what's
you
funny?
live at the studio.
Web development has basically become the same way. Where like before it's like, oh yeah, a WordPress template, I just, copy paste the starter files, I do the CSS, and then I sell it for a couple $100s. And now it's like, hey, we have these Webpack things in React and all this
more complicated.
Sounds sort of like how you described doing ceramics.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely complex build processes for both.
Oh, yeah, and who's got the money for that is so high too that it's funny that there's an irony to the fact that artists, you make so little money in art unless you crack some really interesting entrepreneurial angle with your art. But for the most part, it's a starving artist situation, but yet the amount of gear you need to do the art is so expensive. Cruel twist.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Two more questions. What's your favorite CSS trick, or just a general technique that you enjoy?
And why is it position relative for everything?
I don't know. I have to think about this more and more. At some point, I want to put out a little compilation of my favorite tricks, because I feel like speaking of irony, I think there's potential for a website like CSS Tricks to possibly publish some kind of companion of tricks after a decade of putting them together that I've never done, and it's got me kind of reflecting on what I would choose. But Shah, you and I talked about one just briefly the other day that was like I feel like it was credited to somebody else. I forget his name, Christian something. And then Leah Veru in like 2012 documented it like kind of an improvement of this technique. And it's a way that you take 4 backgrounds with a comma separated backgrounds and you place, like, let's say it's just a white background, right? And you place 2 of them. They're like gradients from white to transparent on white, remember? So they're like a mask. They're just masking what's underneath. And then 2 more of them that are little tiny drop shadows that are smaller than the white masks on top of them. So you can't see them at all by default. Okay. And you attach background attachment local to the little drop shadows and background attachment fixed to the white ones on top. And then if it so happens that the content scrolls, like it has overflow auto, then as it scrolls, the white background falls away and the little tiny black shadow appears. So it like adds a overflow shadow to the scrolling on the side that you're scrolling. So you like scroll to the left or up or down, and you can see this little shadow that's giving you like the UX feeling like, oh, I see, I've scrolled away, so that shadow is hiding what's above it. It's like it's hard to describe with words.
I've got the link in the chat to Leah Veru's article
that blew
on it.
My mind. I never knew how that worked. But
right. It's so.
And now that you told me exactly how it worked, I still don't know how it works. But that's
how I figured it out. Not that I have a total grasp of it, because it is still kind of confusing. And as a matter of fact, you'll see that it's only. It's not. There's 3 background attachments necessary for this to work. I know I just described local and fixed, but you need a background attachment scroll on it too to get the total trick to work.
Wow.
Oh, it's so complicated. It's really hard to wrap your mind around, and I'm not sure I have it perfectly, but I was out for a walk and I just forced myself to think about how it would work even without the CSS, like the masking and the layering and all that stuff. And then I got home and worked on it, and I was like, oh, I got it. And then I chose not to use it because it was so weird. So, stuff like this can be a form of technical debt, do I really want to give this to to a team, But the situation I was in, it was on a dark background. And I feel like dark shadows on dark backgrounds, like you can't just flop them out for white because it looks crappy. I know current Twitter does it kind of, and I think it looks bad. When you just flop out a shadow for a white shadow instead, you're like, no, that doesn't look right.
Yeah. White shadows don't exist in reality. It kind of loses that. It loses that intricate or that built-in kind of mental model of, oh, this is behind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's not just a separator. It's like a shadow. Yeah. Literally. Anyway.
All right.
I love that trick. That's a great trick. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Chris. This has been lovely coding with you. We'll have to do it again soon.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, you've been watching Keyframers. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to see more from all of us, you can check out chriscoyier.net for all things Chris. And we'll have those links down below. You can also pledge at patreon.com/keyframers to help us out. You can also go to codepen.io/pro and sign up for a pro subscription to get a lot of the great features we're utilizing here in Keyframers. That is a great way to support all of us.
Yeah. And we do accept submissions for future episodes. So tweet at Keyframers with any animations you'd like to see made. And we also do accept Chris's, whether you're a Christian, Christopher, Christina, whatever. We would love to have you as a guest. So, we could talk about it. And you could also present questions or challenges that we'll try to answer on the air. And so please share this video and demo with all of your social platforms.
Yes. Well, thank you all for joining us here live. Thank you for watching. And thank you so much, Chris. Until next time, adios, amigos.
Adios.